Welcome back, y'all. This is the Full Blitz podcast. I am your host, Big Easy. As always, with me, the digital doctor himself.
What's poppin'?
And welcoming back to the show, the host of the All Things Titans TikTok page, our guy, Jonathan Miller. Welcome back, my man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. We got a lot of fun things to talk about, a lot of speculation in the offseason, and we're here. That it's come to a head.
Absolutely. And I'm super stoked. We were just talking about it, getting to dive into the draft, some of the things the Titans did. But before we get into the actual draft picks, right, there was something that happened. And I don't know if a lot of people realized it. I know us Titans fans, we realized it because we were finally in the moment, small market team, finally in front of the nation. And it just appeared as if ESPN just 100% blew off Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans in their moment. As another like just diehard, two-tone blue. Man, what do you think happened there? That was just a massive drop of the ball.
It was, yeah. And, it's kind of really what it is it's an extension of just how Cam Ward has been overlooked as a whole, right? Like naturally leading up to the draft, even a lot of big names in the media were saying things like, hey, like this is the least talked about first overall pick in draft history is what it feels like, right? And, maybe that's some Cam Ward being overlooked, but he's a big time player. He won many awards, was a Heisman finalist, and he played at a big time school. So it's kind of like, well, maybe he wasn't overlooked for that reason. Maybe it's because he's seemingly for sure going to a small market team in the Tennessee Titans that don't naturally get a lot of shine. So is it some of that? Now, I think personally, it was easy to be frustrated as a fan, right? But I think realistically, maybe the real reason was because the number 2 overall pick was traded right as the pick was announced for Cam Ward. So was it terrible timing? I was doing a draft party at my house that I like to host because my birthday's like right up against the draft or on draft weekend. So I always have some buddies over. And obviously with TikTok now and the content I'm making now, I was like, I'm going to do a live. And so I was doing a live and I'm recording it. We're having a good time. We celebrate the pick for a second. And literally, what was it, 5-10 seconds after the pick was announced, it's like trade. And I'm like, Jacksonville, really? Like the division rivals just swooping in and stealing our shine.
It had to be Jacksonville.
So it sucks. As a fan, I was like, man, I really wish we could have absorbed that and enjoyed it a little bit more. But, it is what it is. At this point, like, we're going to be an overlooked team. We will be. It doesn't matter how good Cam Ward is, how good he was throughout his career, how many doubters he served from, high school, Columbia High, Incarnate Word, and on and on. It doesn't matter everything he's overcome. Now he gets to the point. And it sucks for Cam, to be honest with you. I'm upset for him. I'm kind of sad for him. But yes. You know what I will say? The reason, the reason we got the right guy, at every turn, he's just proving us right. Even with all of this doubt, right? And even with him getting his shine blocked a little bit, he doesn't care. He's not about the shine and the notoriety. He's about getting to the ball. And he's about winning. And so I'm really honestly proud of the way that he's carried himself. Yeah. And he's won me over more and more as the way he just kind of carried, even off the field, like nothing to do with football. The way this guy carries himself off the field is fantastic.
So there was a few things, right? When me and you first initially talked, I was very open about how I was skeptical of Cam Ward. And I stepped back. I said, okay, I was a big guy of trading down, now hindsight's 2020, super happy we didn't do that. I looked at it and there were a few things that happened or a few things that, went on during draft night. One, I knew Cam Ward was our guy when he got there and he had on a nice subtle suit, his Miami pin. No, and look, I have jewelry. I have all of that too. But that is what to me is the makings of a ultimate pro. He ain't about the flash. He's not about, and then when asked, hey, what are you going to do with your $48 million fully guaranteed contract? The dude's first answer was, I'm going to buy more dog food. Like, yeah. That is just, that's what you're looking for, right? And first, happy birthday. I think you said it was yesterday, right?
Yesterday, yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And I got to catch some of the TikTok live. I was, I thought it was really dope. And you're right. It had to be Jacksonville. If there was any team that was going to do it, it had to be Jacksonville. But I do think looking at it, I feel like they did him dirty. When I watch NFL Live every day, right? I'm a big NFL Live guy. Last year, leading up to the draft, every single day, Caleb Williams, Chicago Bears. We knew that's where he was going, just like we knew Tennessee was going. Cam Ward, I think like 3 or 4 days up to the draft, it was a lock. No talk, no nothing. And this is a guy that all he did was win and put up stupid stats everywhere he went. But it's okay. It's now Cam Ward time in Tennessee. We're all stoked. One of the things that I was super happy about, and I got on the internet as soon as I saw it, was what I would call the passing of the torch with Warren Moon allowing Cam Ward to wear the number 1 jersey. There's a lot of speculation. I think you had talked about it, that one of the reasons he was doing it was because Cam Ward would never wear the 1 in Oilers blue, in that throwback Oilers jersey. We know we have a rebrand coming. We got the new stadium coming.
Well, we didn't know we had the rebrand coming. We assumed, and then Warren Moon accidentally confirmed. So thank you, Warren, for doing that for us. But yeah,
Absolutely.
So now we know it's confirmed. There's some sort of rebrand, which was likely going to come. We all suspected, because it was like Tennessee was like, okay, we're only wearing the baby blues, right? And we're like, that's kind of weird. And so we had our speculation, and then Warren just came out and confirmed it. So that was kind of
Warren
funny.
did it for us. But I love that. And then the last thing before we jump into the draft picks, if you guys need any more reason, like you said, to absolutely fall in love with Cam Ward reached out to each and every one of the other draft picks. And that is just a absolute sign of a leader. Hasn't even worked with anybody, but wanted to welcome each of the other new guys. And not on Twitter, which Tyler Lockett, big shout out, love that. That's another that, it
Big
is
fan of that.
obvious. It is obvious that Mike and Chad and Brian, they want to change the culture and the way that the Tennessee Titans are viewed. And it is obvious. And as we get into these draft picks, all of them have one of the same big characteristics that Mike mentioned. They all love football. And without even more, right? Let's dive into these draft picks, because I'm super stoked to look at them.
Yeah. A couple of housekeeping notes based on what you just said, actually, that were interesting. One, the Warren Moon thing, having that get confirmed and having him pass off the jersey number to Cam is amazing. I've never been like, I get the conversation. A lot of people were upset because it's like, it's retired, it's his number, don't wear it. Well, now we know that essentially there's a rebrand coming, and it's very likely that the Titans are not going to wear the Oilers uniforms. First, they told us that outright this offseason about, probably 2 months ago. They were saying, we're not wearing the Oilers, we're only wearing the light blues. Everyone's like, that's kind of weird. And then Warren says, well, a big reason why I'm passing the number off is because I feel like my legacy is being protected, because Cam won't wear the number 1 in an Oilers uniform. It'll be like a version of that. So basically all confirmed that we're getting what I think is probably going to happen. And I'll just touch on this briefly because this is a whole other topic for a different day. But essentially what's going to happen is, I think Miss Amy has looked at the Oilers situation as like, okay, this is frustrating to keep coming back to this. Like, oh, Oilers is in Tennessee history, yada, yada. So she's like, okay, fine. We're going to change our uniforms, and we're going to take the intellectual property of the Oilers colorway and, kind of the theme of the jersey and make it Tennessee Titans. So I think a version of that, like a kind of a combination of what the Titans is now versus, with like older colorway. I think we're going to have some version of that come together in a jersey, in a uniform. And then you won't have to wear the Oilers anymore, because it's just going to come through in what the new Titans uniform is going to be. And that's just going to be squashed, which I'm kind of excited for, kind of tired of hearing Houston Texans fans talk about that.
Me too.
But the other thing, like I said, topic for another day, but I wanted to touch on it. The other thing that's really exciting, and we'll get to talking about this guy, but getting Xavier Restrepo as an undrafted free agent, not having to take a pick, that arguably was the second most exciting pick of the entire draft, getting him to pair with Cam. But the nugget that I wanted to drop before we get into him, there was a video that came out on Twitter where Xavier was talking to wide receiver coach Rob Moore for the Titans on the phone. Well, there's one clip that Xavier Restrepo posted where it's just the end of it. And he goes, hey, God is good. Thank you, coach. Tennessee. And they get excited. But there was a clip, a different video that the NFL posted that was much longer and caught more of the conversation. And in that clip, Rob Moore says, Cam has been calling Coach Callahan and us since the 4th round, telling us to draft you. And so basically Cam's just slamming the phones like, we'll get into the draft class here, but you have Chimray, DK get picked at 103, and then Cam picks up the phone. They're like, yo, you got to get Restrepo. What are you guys doing? And then, several picks happen in day 3, get all the way to the end of the day, and to still get him, be able to sign him without having to spend a pick is just insane. So background,
I can't wait to
was
get
kinda
into
cool.
him. I cannot wait to just get into that whole scenario and how that unfolded. And usually I'm talking in the draft, I'm talking about how the NFL just fumbled the bag by letting Philly just let these guys drop to Philly, right? NFL, y'all messed up. Y'all like, and we're gonna get into it. But let's dive into these draft picks. Obviously, round 1, pick 1, we get who you believed all along. You made me go back and look, and I really fell in love with Cam Ward. What I want to know is, we all know about Cam Ward now. Every Tennessee Titan fan knows about Cam Ward. There is one particular aspect of his game that me and you didn't really talk about, but it jumps off of the tape. And I know what mine is, so I'm curious to see what yours is. But for me, I have never seen a quarterback so young have such a presence of when the rush is coming. And this is what swayed this was what it was. And it was I took Dan Orlowski's advice and I went and watched the Cal game. And this guy, I mean, it almost seems like he knows where guys are in the pocket when they're 3-4 steps away. I mean, I've never seen a guy as young as him have such a almost sixth sense of where the pressure is coming from. And it doesn't matter if it's behind him, his blind side, or if the pocket's collapsing on the middle. I mean, I love it. And I'm super excited to see what he does with that, because I know our division is stacked with edge rushers, with Hunter, the cats that they picked in Jacksonville. I mean, our division has just got some dogs. But
Colts got better too. They had a
yeah,
JT. Yeah. So yeah, to your point, I mean, it's the defensive lines is becoming just such a primary piece to build on top of, right? Getting to the quarterback is huge. But yeah, so I think to answer your question on the Cam Ward thing, the thing that he does a lot of things really well. But the one thing that's the most important to me when evaluating quarterbacks is how they play between their ears, right? So it's the mental game. I'm less impressed about being able to put the ball anywhere on the field. Accuracy and timing is of course important, but you can find 20 quarterbacks in every class, from just about every class, that have some effort of pacing and timing and accuracy that are good enough to play at the next level. The problem is that it's less about accuracy of the ball and more about anticipating the throw. And that's understanding where you need to go with the ball and where you can or should go with the ball based on post-snap reading of the defense. The problem with evaluating quarterbacks is that if you have a quarterback that does a pretty good job of that at a lesser level, a good example would be like Trey Lance, for example, right? Like he's playing against future doctors and lawyers, right? And so it's pretty easy to hit guys when they're open and throw some touchdowns and run all over the defense, right?
I like
The
that.
difference is not only the level of like play, right? But also the thing that I love the most about Cam and what caught my attention right away was not only how good he was at throwing with anticipation and reading the defense well post snap, but it was his poise. So the big things that you check off, right? Like you go down, you're going to lose a game. You're going to be down in a game, right? But at the end of the day, something that is absolutely critical to high elite level quarterback play at the next level is having the poise to stay collected enough to come right back and fire right back at him, right? The one thing that Josh Allen did well early in his career was obviously he made a ton of mistakes, and some of the best quarterbacks in this league were turnover machines at a certain point. But it's how you responded to that adversity, kept your team in it, and lead the charge, right? That's the one thing, a lot of people are defending Levis really strongly because of a lot of the traits that he has. And that's great. Big arm, physical, cool, right? He can sling it just as good as the rest of them.
Absolutely.
The problem is that when he would make a mistake, he would not respond well. And that carries the momentum of your entire football team. And so Cam Ward having that poise, he's actually almost too poised. He's almost too calm and relaxed.
Almost seems like he's nonchalant about it, right?
100%, almost like
that.
He doesn't care if you win or lose, right? And so naturally, when you're that good and that poised, then it's like the one feedback that someone would have would be like, oh, well, does this guy even care? And it's like, then you're just grasping at straws. But yeah, so to answer your question, like the one thing that impresses me the most about Cam Ward is that he is a truly alpha quarterback. He is a alpha leader. If he goes down and makes a mistake, it's, guess what? We still got more ball to play, right? And so what happens naturally when you have that guy, if you can make a terrible mistake like he made in the Virginia Tech game where he just makes that egregious pick and then everyone retweeted and goes, see, this guy's Will Levis. Oh my God, this is terrible. But then he responds the way he responds in that game, comes right back and fires a big score. I think it was to Arroyo or Restrepo. I can't remember who caught that big tutty.
It was a shot too, right? It was like 45, 50 yards or something like that.
And guess what? Calm, cool, collected. That's what you need in a quarterback because he's going to play against good defenses and you're going to go down and your defense is going to buckle a little bit. And guess what? If you're that poised and you can keep your entire team focused and calm, naturally what happens? You can have the best defenders, the best receivers in the game. If you, at the end of the day, all of those players, the coaching staff, the fans, where do they all look? Right at the quarterback. Right at the quarterback. And if you look over at him and you see that killer mentality on his face, you're like, oh, Cam's about to go get this shit. I mean, it's the same thing with Patrick Mahomes, right? It's the same thing with Mahomes. When he throws a bad pick or whatever, he's just stone cold face, right? And at the end of the day, all of his teammates, they turn and look at him and see how serious he is. And guess what? He backs it up. He goes out there and makes a play. And that rejuvenates the entire team. When you get the momentum sucked out of the stadium, there's one guy who can put it back, and it's the quarterback. And this guy's got it. So, yeah,
I agree.
That's
100%. I agree 100%. So I assume we're both stoked, right? I knew you were.
Over the moon.
I'm over the moon with Cam Ward. Our next two picks, right? Because we're going to kind of fire wrap it. I love what the Titans did with some of the trades and things like that. Our next two picks, I am not even going to attempt to pronounce our second round picks.
Femi.
Name. Okay. Is that the
So they're calling him Femi. Yeah, it's Olua. Okay. I think it's Oluwafemi, which means loved by God. It's a South African name, I think, which is really cool. And I pronounce it Odeo. Or it's like some people say Odejo, and it might be that, but I just say Odeo. But
okay, so we're gonna go with Femi because the internet has been tearing me apart for my inability to be able to pronounce people's names. And
it's a tough name, to be fair.
Apologize. Okay. But so I was at work. I was doing an event and I got a call. My uncle called me and he told me, he was like, yo, y'all last two picks were real. And I went and looked up who they were. First off, I watched Femi at UCLA. I thought he has the best outside of Abdul Carter, right? I thought he has the best first step from an edge rusher in the draft. Pierce and Tennessee, but that's more or less because he's just fast. He doesn't have that power. Femi puts his foot into the ground, and that left hand that he hits tackles with is just ridiculous. His combination of power and speed matches what Denard wants to do on defense, and then you put him with Simmons and Sweat and Key and Sebastian Day, and this defensive line is starting to look phenomenal. And then we go to that third round, and we take 8 physical. Now, again, he's got some injury issues, which I didn't really want to fool with. But the upside is if the injury issues don't go away, I think we got a top 15 pick in the third round.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, I think so. Sorry, go ahead. You can finish your thought.
No. Yeah. You're good.
So, yeah. So for these two guys, Femi Oladejo, I'm a big fan of him, but admittedly, at that pick, I did think it was a little bit of a reach. But at the end of the day, this was a draft for reaching or falling because it was a very second to third round heavy draft. And so you had some guys taken in the first that probably shouldn't have gone. And you had guys that went in the second, third, and later rounds that should have been way sooner, way earlier picks.
For sure.
Naturally, what happens when you have a talent pool that's maybe a little thinner than in other drafts, you have evaluations that are all over the board. So you have guys all over the place. So naturally, could we say like, Femi was a guy who probably should have been like a third round pick or something like that? Like, sure, we could have said that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it all comes down to a couple of things, right? And so the evaluating not just him as a player, which obviously he's a new edge. He was a starting off-ball linebacker for a while, but when he puts his hand in the dirt, gets off the edge, like you said, he's got a quick first step. He's crazy athletic. But the one thing that I love about him a ton is that he's really young at playing edge, yet he showed the flashes that he showed. So the exciting things is that you get a really athletic guy, a really high character guy as well. So he's really known for just being a great teammate, great energy guy.
Which is a theme.
Draft a guy in the second. It is a theme. You
that
can't
was a
draft
theme
a guy
for
off
this
of
draft.
energy in the second round, though. So to be critical, I think Femi, there's a lot of opportunity for him to grow into that role. And I think that he has he's a big, powerful dude as well. So we're not talking about like a Harold Landry or a Jalen Harrell or someone who's kind of like a speed rush, finesse type of guy. This is a genuinely bulky, strong fella, right? So there's a lot of promise there with him, though he doesn't have a ton of experience. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a slow start for Femi, but he'll have the opportunity to go out there, get some rotational reps, and who knows, maybe by the end of the year, he's playing a bunch. The one thing I'll say on Winston, so I'm going to make sure I'm saying his name right. I got that all back up. It's Kevin Winston.
Kevin Winston Jr. Yep.
Kevin Winston, you're right. So Kevin Winston Jr., Penn State product. This is a guy who in 2023 had a phenomenal season. So if you go look at his 23 tape, it'll have you be like, whoa, this cat is a first-round talent. Obviously has a partial tear in his ACL that sidelines him through a good portion, almost all, I think, of the 2024 season. And so unfortunately, you're kind of going off of recent tape. But I wouldn't label him necessarily as like a injury prone guy. So I don't think that Titans fans should be worried about him being like an injury riddled person. But what I will say is that if you take that injury out, which sidelined him, and you look at that 23 tape, it really was phenomenal. And he could have easily been the second or first safety off the board if he didn't have that injury lingering over him. So the good news is for Tennessee is it's a guy who can either, one, his medical's cleared, which is why Tennessee was okay with taking him.
Absolutely.
And that trade back was phenomenal, getting that third round pick. And
so
honestly,
smart.
taking a look at what's funny is like taking a look at this draft as a whole. At the time, we're like, no, we're supposed to go receiver here. What are we doing?
I did the same thing.
We all did it because that was the expectation.
I was like, what are we doing?
Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker, and the team, they knew what they were doing. They had a plan. And honestly, getting the guys that they got at receiver I'm okay with it. I think we all were pounding the table for like a Luther Burden or somebody at pick 35, which is understandable. But picking up a third round pick in this draft specifically was critical. And it
was important.
Fans might not be ecstatic about Kevin Winston, but I can tell you right now that it has like Kevin Byard-esque potential layered on top.
I said that yesterday when the draft was over and I was doing another event and I was talking to somebody. I said, listen, if you go back and you look at this kid, okay, one, he had a injury, not like Caleb Farley, who had multiple injuries. Right. He had one injury and it wasn't, if I remember correctly, I don't believe it was a full tear of the ACL. Tear.
Yeah.
So one, that's less time to heal. Right. Yes. I've torn an ACL. So I know. And two, your body responds better when it's not a full tear because it's not completely repairing something along with a surgery. So I think that he was a steal at the third pick, even with the injury. And then trading back, when I saw the trade, I was furious. I was like, Luther is there. What are we doing? Like, you put Luther with Calvin. What are we doing? And I told myself, I said, hey, trust the process, trust your front office. And listen, these next three guys, all three of the 4-round picks, because I absolutely loved trading back into the 4th round. Didn't really give up much. We only slid down 5 spots. We gave up that 5th round pick. Whatever.
It's just moving up. It's just moving up. We didn't even really lose a pick. It was awesome.
So we have another guy. I'm gonna call him DK 2.0 because he's another first name that I cannot pronounce.
Chimray.
Chimray,
or I think people call him Chim for short. But
Chim. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Chimray DK.
wide receiver out of Florida, super fast. I'm a big fan of him. He can go up and high point the ball. I think his route running has to get a little cleaner, but a word that Riddick, I love listening to Riddick, that he likes for his defensive players that fits well with him. He's twitchy. I love that about him.
Yeah.
And then
Chimray, that was a frustrating pick at the time. I'm not going to lie. I think that was another time in the draft where Titans fans were like, bro, what are we doing? It happened multiple times, but this is what I will say about Chimray. Chim has I think he was drafted for a very specific reason. And
yes.
I also think that he's a guy who's going to have to grow into a more, it's interesting, right? He's a guy who could grow into a more serious role within the team, but he was drafted for a specific reason. And what that was for was the one thing that Chimray DK does very, very well is he separates at the line extremely well. This boy does not get jammed. And it's because, to your point, he's pretty twitchy. He's fast and agile. He is a field stretcher.
Yes.
Ironically, a better contested catch rate than Elick, who is the big X receiver that we drafted, who was really great, who actually dominated Travis Hunter. But Chimray is going to be a guy who comes in, and Titans fans, this will the best example I could give you. He's not the same player, but he's going to fill a similar role in the Brian Callahan offense that Khalif Raymond filled in the Arthur Smith offense, where Khalif would come in, you'd line him up as the Z or whatever, and he would just run a deep post and beat the middle of the field and catch those crazy balls, right? That's going to be what Chimray DK is going to be used for the most part, but he's a player that has a ton of potential in filling in as a more experienced, he's a guy who's kind of like medium build. He's like 6 foot, sub 200 pounds, but he has the ability to go up and high point balls at a success rate. He didn't have a flashy season. He had 780 something yards, 2 touchdowns, nothing crazy, but he transferred from Wisconsin to Florida and then had a pretty okay year.
Would it be crazy to say that you could see Chim kind of filling in that spot that Akina Westbrook left, kind of that, not necessarily in the build of him, but in the way that he would function within the offense?
I think probably Elick A.O. Manor is probably your Nick Westbrook fill-in in terms of that, in terms of the way that goes. I see Chim as a guy that you bring in on first downs or third downs where you're trying to stretch the field and do something really impressive there, right? To your point, from a route running perspective, he's fast, he's quick, right? He's just going to get bullied in those intermediates, to short routes. But what I will say, another thing, aside from just stretching the field that he does well, is he's quick off of the snap, off of the line of scrimmage. So the things for example, the bootlegs where you bring someone across the field and get them to him really quick in a quick screen game, Chim is going to be fantastic for that. So not only will you have the versatility of a Tony Pollard and a Tajay Spears, but now you have a guy like Chim who can also, it's the same way they used Calvin Ridley last year, where they would give him on a short drag, a 3 or 4 yard drag route, or just a quick bubble screen. They're going to be able to run that double bubble where you have Chim on one side and Calvin on one side, and Cam has an option. What side of the field does he want to go?
I can see them using him as one of those, what's it called? The touch pass, where it's the ball's hiked and then
it's a shovel.
Like a shovel. Because of how quick he is. He's the Tennessee, and that's the other theme. When I look at, other than one guy, and we're going to talk about him now, speed was, I feel, a big area that we wanted to address. Probably the slowest guy in skill positions that we drafted, and a pick that, I'm sorry, this is the pick I do not like. I get that he's good, but I don't like Gunnar Helm at 120. I don't like it. I think that position, that spot in the draft could have been used to grab another cornerback, maybe another Mike linebacker. With Wiley and Chig, I did not understand. Now, I get he's a great pass catching, right? And he is balanced. He can block, which is, something Wiley has struggled with. And Chig, I don't even know if Chig knows how to block. I don't even know if Chig's ever put his hand in the ground, which is cool because he's good at what he does. It just didn't make sense at the pick, right? When you looked at some of the other players that were available, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it didn't make sense to me.
So this is what I'll say about Gunnar Helm. Gunnar Helm was when you look at his stats, if you just stat peep him, you're like, okay, you know, that's not that big of like, you know, but it was actually pretty impressive. He had 73 targets. He had almost 800 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns. Like it's pretty impressive. Not only that, but he was used as an athletic Y tight end that you can send out and do more things, right? So what I would say about Gunner is that it gives you the ability to have a guy who could compete to be a tight end one for you. Gunnar Helm is pretty close to an option that you would see from like an Arroyo that Cam had, right? So this is, I think Gunnar Helm is kind of the Titans front office saying, hey, we're going to get you as close to Arroyo as we possibly can. Gunnar has a very impressive catch radius. Very. Like there's some tape where he's like, not only is it on tape, but you can see it. Like there was a practice where like he got completely horizontal and caught the ball with like 2 fingers. I mean, it was nuts. So he has a really impressive catch radius, and he's also had a lot of success blocking in line as well, which is super important, right? So I think the pick doesn't seem rich to me at 120, only because I can see what Tennessee is trying to do with the pick. I agree. I went into the draft thinking I did mock a tight end at one point, but for the most part, I didn't mock a tight end to Tennessee because I feel pretty good about their top 2 tight ends.
I like
Wiley. Chig is about to have a season, boy. I'm telling you, with Cam Ward, Chig is going to be a name you want to watch out for. But I do like the draft pick of Gunnar Helm and the potential that's there, because I'm so tired of the Jeff Swains and the Austin Hoopers and the bringing in the third. I even forget the guy that we signed last year that did the same thing. I'm not interested in like the journeyman tight ends at tight end 3. I just don't care. I would rather them draft a young guy, solidify, develop, and keep this thing going from there.
So that's fair. That's fair. I think for me, it was just needs at other positions, which, hey, listen, if Gunnar turns out to be a guy where you don't know what to do with our tight ends, with it, whether it's Wiley, Chig, or Gunnar in the game, which I love, I'm cool with that. Now, the pick that we traded back into the 4th round to get, which, like we just talked about, we were all cool with it. And the reason I like this guy, and this is probably the most negative I will be on the Titans, is because I feel like him getting drafted is the end of Treylon Burks. I feel like Treylon Burks will, even if they just with our wide receiver room, and then again, we're going to talk about the other guy, but this is a big, strong, physical wide receiver. He's rough around the edges, which is cool. You know, he's young. With having Calvin Ridley, it's not like he's going to have to come in and be the guy, but he is a guy that can blossom, I think, into a really solid number 2, maybe 1B. Like, I'm not going to put him on the level of T. Higgins, but like, you know, not being the guy. And I'm ready for Treylon Burks to go. I'm still sour about the A.J. Brown trade. And this, to me, marks the end of the Treylon Burks time in Tennessee.
I'm assuming we're talking about Elick Ao Manor.
Elik. Yeah. I wasn't going to even try it again. Tennessee, can we draft some people that I can pronounce?
Yes. So Elick Ao Manor is how you pronounce it. So Elick, when I saw the Elick pick, I literally springed into the air like this. I was like, yes! And it's not because I loved Elick. The funny thing is that people were legitimately talking about him as a pick at 35, like a legitimate pick for Tennessee.
Yeah, he was
at the top of the 2nd round, right?
Most teams had a 2nd round grade on him.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, he was probably like wide receiver 7 or 8 in this class. But that's why I was so excited, is because they got a crazy value on Elick. Now, here's the thing about Elick. He has in some ways, a very one-dimensional play style right now. But the thing that he does very well, he does really, really well. And that is be the big body X receiver, go up contested catch. That's exactly what Tennessee needed. That's the exact profile receiver that this offense was missing. NWI was the last guy. Treylon was a guy who we hoped would be that guy.
That's who we thought was going to be it.
You know, if he was able to stay healthy, I was a strong believer in Treylon Burks. Here's the funny thing. There's a chance that Treylon Burks makes this roster. It sounds absolutely insane, but there's a chance. Yes, there is. There's a chance, because the difference is Tennessee always keeps 6 receivers. And they keep 6 receivers because oftentimes, one, it's not a big competition at the bottom end, and a guy like a Mason Kinsey or whoever, you're just going to be able to float them to your practice squad so you can roster a more primary or more important position elsewhere. The difference this time around, Tennessee is going to have to roster 7 receivers. They're going to have to. They're going to have to because a lot of the guys, they just drafted 3 of them, 3 of which will very likely make the team. They have rookie contracts on all of them. Xavier Restrepo, I'm excited. We'll be able to, I won't bang that drum yet. Yeah. But they, speaking specifically about Elick has the potential to be a day one contributor very quickly in this offense. He is very good, again, like I said, at what he does. Now, you don't have the same versatility that you have in some of the other receivers, but in some of those packages where you need a guy to go contribute, the thing that I loved about it is, especially Gunnar Helm. So again, like Gunnar Helm, Elick Manor, these are guys, and honestly, even Chim, these are guys that are very, very good in the red zone for you because they're going to contest the catch very well. 100%. That's something that this Tennessee offense has not been very good at, right?
For a long time, in my opinion.
For a long time. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Been a while.
Outside, like since we've had Corey Davis and AJ Brown, that was the last year we had a strong, red zone. You can throw the ball in the red zone and feel good about it type of offense, right? Yeah. So that's the thing that I like about Elick. Elick is a fantastic talent. He's a very good blocker. That's the other thing. Like if Vrabel was here, he'd be eating his shorts. He'd be so excited. Elick is a fantastic blocker as well. So yeah, I think there's a good chance that Elick Manor might end up being the best receiver from this class. But there's another one that's pretty darn good too, and we didn't even have to spend a draft pick.
So everything you just said, right, about what Elick does is why I think it will be Elick over Treylon.
Yeah.
If anything, they're going to look at it and say, hey, listen, you two are our Des Bryants. We need y'all to go get the ball. You're not the fastest. You're not the cleanest or the crispest, but you can jump 35 million feet in the air and go get the ball. You can body guys like Travis Hunter. You can body the Patrick Surtains of the NFL. Go get it. And yeah, we hope so. And I do.
We hope so.
Not to be negative, but that's why I was so elated with the pick. The value is terrific, but I looked at that pick and I said, okay, we can finally move on from Treylon Burks.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it makes a ton of sense. And it was a fantastic value.
Yeah, 100%. So our last 3 picks, we're going to kind of run through them. We got 1 in round 5 and 2 in round 6. Believe it or not, my favorite pick of these 3 is round 5. I love the selection of offensive guard Jackson Slater. And I don't care what y'all say about Sacramento State. The man was a 3-time all-conference player, okay? This is still college football. This is still big boy football, okay? One of the best quarterbacks in the NFL came from Wyoming. All right. Like your college is important, but as an offensive line, your competition isn't as important as your skill set. And Slater, in my opinion, is one of the most athletic offensive linemen in this year's draft. This is a guy coming in 5th round who is going to compete for a backup position. I really believe he's going to compete for a backup slot.
I think he's going to be the future right guard of the team. That's how confident I am in Jackson Slater. Jackson Slater, here's the thing. Everything you just said, right? Like everything at the FCS level where it's like, okay, not a crazy amount of talent. He's blocking future lawyers and doctors out here, right? But this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say about Jackson. He went to the Senior Bowl and absolutely body bagged all your favorite pass rushers. Yes. So what do we want to say now? So it's like, okay, well, the thing about him is he has really short arms, and if a defender gets up on him really quickly, it's really hard for him to keep track there. He gave up like 3 sacks or something, and 1 sack and 3 hurries, something. The reality is this guy's a very reliable, not only pass protector, but a very reliable blocker in general. And then he went and showed that he can do it at a much higher level of skill. The fact that they're able to get this guy in the 5th round, there were a lot of gems when it comes to the offensive line in this year's class. And I was really, really pleased with them going. I really like Charles Grant. He went, I think, in the early 4th round, but seeing Jackson Slater, that pick in the 5th round got me so jacked up because it was like, it's never a sexy pick, but the Tennessee desperately needed to add some level of depth
Absolutely.
in this class to the offensive line, whether they decided to go tackle or guard or whatever, right? The reality is Kevin Zeitler is on a 1-year deal. He's at the back end of his career. He's a new dad. You know, does he stay if the team sees some success and he likes it? Maybe, and I'd be cool with that. But Jackson Slater feels like a guy who is a future starter on the offensive line. And another thing that's exciting is that this guy also has played a couple games at tackle too, and he looked pretty darn good at tackle.
And he can
also
move. Yes.
versatile. Yeah.
And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, so we have a guard who could have gone way earlier in the 5th round. And now you get to play behind a guy like Zegler, who is a savvy, very good veteran, knows how to get in. For all of the people who may watch this, can we stop with this nonsense of the short arms with offensive linemen? Campbell had 2 sacks in 2 years playing at LSU. It like, stop with the short
Dinosaur
arm
arms.
nonsense. Like, stop. But me, I'm so, not that I don't like the other 2 picks, but for me, this was a slam dunk. This was probably the best value pick of our entire draft at what we're getting and where we got him. We did go cornerback. I think it was a little late, but I still think we got a stellar guy in Marcus Harris out of Cal. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think he's a little undersized.
I would say he's pretty average size for a corner, 5'11", 190. Good zone defender. I believe he transferred out of Idaho and played at Cal and had a pretty good year. I mean, he's a serviceable player. He was good. He, you know, for the most part was really good. Just overall, just passes defense in general. A crazy stat that I literally went is that he scored 4 touchdowns in 2024. I don't know if those, I'm assuming those are special teams related. So I think that that's probably a special teams contribution type of, you know, that type of pick that makes sense for a Denard Wilson defense. But yeah, I think he's probably going to contribute, maybe a bones pick where he's going straight to special teams. But
and I think
4 touchdowns.
I think that's the case at 188 as well. Mullings, the running back out of Michigan, I think that's more special teams.
He's a tough runner. He's the big, so Khalil Mullings is basically your Julius Chestnut competition. That's exactly what Khalil is. And so
for the 3rd spot.
Exactly. He's a big body. Khalil Mullings is fun because he started his career as a linebacker. And then basically they had a ton of injuries at running back. And they're like, yo, we need you. You want to run the rock? And he's like, yes. So they let him play running back, and he was pretty darn good. And so was really good, you know, shedding he wasn't easy to tackle, which obviously is a great, you know, attribute of being a running back. But 6'2", 233 pounds is a big dude. I don't necessarily think that I will be interested to see what he looks like in camp and the battle between Julius Chestnut and him, because for Titans fans, you guys know, like, Julius Chestnut, pretty darn good player. And he's done really well in preseasons. And I think he's even kind of contributed in games where he needed to be called up. I don't know. I'm assuming the Titans carry 3 running backs. It's very strongly they're not going to carry 4. So we know that likely either Khalil or Julius are going to make it are going to be sent to the practice squad. So that's going to be the competition you'll see there. But the only thing I don't know about Khalil, and honestly, maybe he does get the nod over Julius Chestnut in this way on special teams. He's a former linebacker. So, you know,
he could,
that could help him quite a bit on special teams.
So looking at all of our draft picks, right? And I'm not a big grade guy, but I know everybody loves them. I know everybody likes to see what people think. I did see that ESPN gave Tennessee one of 7 teams that got an A in the draft grade. Where would you put the Titans draft grade if you were putting it out?
Yeah, the draft grade thing is interesting. There's one person on this planet that crushed my dreams with draft grades, and you'll never guess who it was. It was Mark Cuban. When I was working for the Mavs, we had our first draft that we were responsible for, and we thought we had the best draft of the NBA 2K League at that year. And then we had people who were reporting on it, and we were I think we were one of like 2 teams that got an A in our draft grades, right? And I'd never forget, I was so proud. I DM'd Mark Cuban and was like, hey, check this out. Like, they gave us an A. And he responded with one word, and he said, great. Cool.
Great. Yeah, great.
Cool. The draft grades things, it's like, you know, you take it for what it's worth. I mean, we'll all never know, because every single year there's going to be a 4th or 5th or 6th round player that's an absolute stud that would have made a class way better. But I will say, from surface level, Exactly, right? Like you always are going to have those studs in the late, or Elick Manor, for example, like getting him that late, or Jackson Slater. We're going to be like, yo, we got this guy in the fifth and he's our stud guard for the future or whatever. But yeah, I think overall, taking a look at this class, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I'm a big fan of obviously the Cam Ward pick. The Titans got me a franchise quarterback for my birthday, which I really appreciate.
Love it.
Femi was a little bit of a reach for me. Chim was a little bit of a reach for me. But looking at the draft class as a whole, I think there is a ton of value, and the Titans added value in very good players at positions that weren't necessarily screaming needs. But that Xavier Restrepo signing at the end of the draft, getting Restrepo without needing to spend a pick, and taking a look at the receivers that the Titans just added, these rookie receivers, I mean, how can you not be excited? I was just looking at it and reflecting. If the Titans had taken a Restrepo in the third round, I would have been happy with that pick.
Been
and let
over
alone
the moon.
See what I'm saying? Like we were all saying at the fourth when we're sitting there at the top of the fourth round, we're like, if we could just slam Xavier Restrepo right here, we're in good shape. And sure enough, the Titans go, like Mike Borgonzi goes, hold my beer. Like we'll just sign this guy after. It's fine. So incredible.
Let's get into that real quick before we get you out of here. Okay. We go the entire draft. Anybody that watched Cam Ward knew that there was this guy, maybe not the biggest guy, maybe not the most athletic guy. Okay. And his name is Xavier Restrepo.
Julian Edelman. Xavier Restrepo.
2.0. 2.0. Julian Edelman 2.0. I agree with you 100%, and I will die on that hill. Not just that.
Let's pick up our spears and go to war.
What I love about us getting Xavier Restrepo, and I love it even more that we got him as an undrafted free agent, is you now bring a level of comfortability to your new franchise quarterback. He is walking in day one with a guy that he has won with a guy that knows
his
him.
number one target.
His number one target.
It's not even a small convenience. No, it's literally his favorite target.
It is the guy he threw to when he was under pressure. It was the guy he threw to when he couldn't see him. For anybody that ever wonders what makes a quarterback more comfortable other than an offensive line, is knowing the chemistry with his guys going down the field. I am convinced that Cam Ward could hit Xavier Restrepo anywhere on the field with his eyes closed, because those two are so entwined with how the other ones play. Fans, listen, between me and Jonathan, listen, this will be the most under the radar signing for any team. I'm saying it now.
Hands down. Yeah, I mean, look. I don't think we have to convince our fan base. I think everyone pretty much simultaneously and unanimously agrees. But just for those out there that are maybe not Titans fans, because we've done the digging, right? For non-Titans fans looking at the significance of this, not only is Xavier Restrepo a very, very good player, but the absolute travesty that occurred when he ran a 4.8. Now, whether he's telling the truth, I believe he is. He would have no reason to lie. But saying like, oh, I had a thing with my hamstring. And
he tweaked his hamstring.
So running a 4.8. If this guy ran a 4.5 or a 4.4 official, he would have been a first or a top of the second round draft pick.
100%.
Because when you look at his stats, obviously he had a really great year. He had 95 targets, 69 catches, 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns this past season, which is crazy. But the year before, without Cam Ward, still 1,100 yards, 119 targets, 85 catches, and 6 touchdowns. This guy is, I don't want to misspeak, but I think he's like the all-time leader in yards and catches or something for Miami. It's insane. And then the last thing I want to say about him is the way that he is graded. Again, people assume that he's a slot receiver because of his size and his speed. No, he's not. This guy literally has he nearly grades almost 88% against man coverage this past season. What he was able to do last season alone was nothing short. If you had changed his name and put him on a different team and had him run a faster 40, this is a bona fide first round pick. It's not even close. And to sign him for your quarterback that you just drafted for the free ski, for the low ski, $85K.
Like,
You know what I'm
and
saying?
he
You have to
and
pay him more, but you know what I'm saying?
his route tree is insane. He can run any route. Okay. And y'all, for those of you that don't know, I need to say this. I've been wanting to say this. Stop putting so much stock in the combine. Stop. If you want to know how a dude plays, watch him on tape. Restrepo is faster than a 4.8. I promise you
100%.
that. I guarantee you.
You're basically
that
saying you can't outrun an athletic lineman. Like, come
yeah,
on.
you know, like I guarantee
Come
you
on.
they're gonna put what's that little mile, the miles per hour thing they do in the NFL. I guarantee you Restrepo hits 20. I guarantee you. I
Yeah.
will put
I mean,
money on it.
every football player on planet Earth would tell you that there's football speed and then there's track speed, right? And so the unfortunate part is that we are grading guys on track speed, which is just ridiculous. So
It's
yeah, I
stupid.
mean, and Cam Ward said that in his the day before the draft, they asked him about Restrepo, and he said like, look, the 40 thing, like who cares? I don't care how fast you clock a 40. What I care about is how quick you are on the field, and he's as fast as everybody on the field, right? So it's funny, like we're both geeking out about it, and that's because it's such a massive deal. It's literally like if the top receiver for the top quarterback that you drafted didn't get drafted and you were able to just sign him for the free ski and then just be like, okay, cool. Now we have our wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 of the future. Like it really is limitless in that way. So I think the Restrepo signing at that point is just what put this draft class over the top for me.
Over the
Because
top.
without it, I was okay with the receivers. I was really happy with Elick. It was a big need in the offense. He's a very good player, and you got him in the 4th or 5th round. I forget what it was.
Fourth
That's
round.
insane value, right?
Absolutely.
But the absolute cherry on top was getting Restrepo, who we were all so very high on for very, very obvious and good reasons. To get him, just signing him to the team and having him, it adds a layer of excitement because it's like we were upset about not maybe getting our receiver in the 2nd round like we wanted to. But then it was just like Borgonzi was like, hold on, do you want it better? Do you want the receiver that you wanted around that time but for free?
You know
and
what
that's
makes it
happened.
even
So it's
better?
just amazing.
Is when you were here with us last time, we were talking about Cam Ward, right? This is exactly what we were talking about, getting the fan base excited.
Yes.
We have a new stadium, we have a new quarterback, and now we have that quarterback's number 1 target from college. Listen, if you're not paying attention, y'all need to pay attention. Tennessee is only going to be a small market team for a short period of time. We are getting ready to make a violent shove into a large market team. And I believe Brian Callahan, Mike Borgonski, Chad Brinker. I have the first letter right.
He looks like a Chad Brunswick, to be fair.
Right. And Amy is, from my opinion, looks like she's finally like, hey, I got people I trust. I'm going to let them do their thing. So, guys, Tennessee is on the rise. Jonathan, my man, thank you so much for coming on with us again. Make sure y'all go check out all of his socials. Jonathan, let them know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, so TikTok, all things Titans. I do obviously Titans content there, but also try to connect and do NFL content as a whole there. And then on Twitter at Esports Valen on Twitter, or X is where you can find me.
That's what's up, man. Thank you again for coming on. Guys, coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at the rest of the draft and the craziness that was the 2025 NFL Draft. Hey, guys, are y'all looking to host a small get-together or have a company party coming up? Goodfella Gaming has you covered, offering casino-style parties of any size and for any occasion. Goodfella has all the casino games like blackjack, roulette, craps, and poker. They even have some of the specialty games such as 3-card poker, Let It Ride, and Pie Gal. Not looking to do a casino night? No worries. Goodfellows has a large inventory of bar games like pool tables, air hockeys, and dartboards. Arcade games like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and they even have the drivers y'all like Super Bikes and Mario Karts. And we can't forget the number of pinball games as well. Head over to goodfellagaming.com to get your free quote today. And don't forget to let them know that the guys at the Full Blitz podcast sent you. All right, guys, coming out of the break. So if you kept up with the draft, you know it was a wild weekend. But before I get into that, there was a situation that happened, and I got to speak on it. And I hope the person involved or the people responsible for it, and I think they've kind of figured out who it is. I hope you get what you have coming to. To the young man that called Shedeur Sanders and said that he was the GM of the New Orleans Saints and that they were getting ready to draft him, and Shador, like they show the conversation from Shador, bro, you're dead wrong. It doesn't matter how you feel about this man. It doesn't matter what you think about him sliding down in the draft. This is a young man that has worked his entire life to get drafted into the NFL. And then he goes through the turmoil and the, trouble of not getting drafted when he thought he was going to, and not getting drafted when he maybe should have. And then you take it upon yourself to be a shitbag of a human being, to play a prank on a man that now he thinks he's getting drafted and he's not. I hope you get what you have coming to you. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you know, because there are rumors that it's the son of the Falcons defensive coordinator. There are rumors that Shador's number was leaked by the GM or the Giants GM's daughter because she went to, I don't care. Y'all are wrong as hell for playing like that. I hope you work your ass off to try to make it to something as prestigious as the NFL, and people take your pain and play with it. That ain't cool. Don't do that. I don't know. Like, who does that? What kind of a sick human being does that? I'll tell you who. A piece of shit. That's who.
Ooh.
That's who does it. And I hope you get everything that you got coming to you. I really do. I don't hope bad on nobody, but I do on you. Because you, and you know something, please don't block me. Please don't take it down. Whatever. You a piece of shit. Hands down, just like that. And I said it. I don't give a damn who you know. Man, that's just, like as a former
That's screwed
football
up,
player,
though, yeah.
And somebody that
So,
has
and then
worked.
what are the consequences of that?
I don't even know if there are any consequences.
Yeah,
other than I hope 5 homeboys beat the hell out of him.
They just get away with that? Nah, somebody gonna handle it in the streets.
Like, bro, what is wrong with you? It don't matter how you feel about Shador Sanders as a football player. No human being, whether they're arrogant, whether they're cocky, it doesn't matter. No human being deserves to have their, I'm not going to say livelihood because he still got drafted and everything like that, but nobody deserves to deal with that. You wrong.
It was live streamed too.
Yeah, like you a down bad human being for that. I mean, that wasn't cool. I mean, so and what was crazy was he went through the whole conversation with him, like,
man,
you a down bad human. Yeah, right there. Them, yo.
Yeah, all right.
I can hear it.
Wait a little bit longer,
You
man.
can?
Sorry.
Y'all is shitbag human beings. Y'all think other people's pain is there for y'all pleasure. Y'all is shitbag human beings. Anyways, I just had to say that because through everything, somebody needs to stand up outside of the normal media and things like that, because they may not talk about it. They may think it's just a game or whatever. No, it's not a game, and that's not funny. Don't do that nonsense.
Yeah, that ain't right.
Anyways, going into
Pranksters,
the Shador Sanders thing, right? First thing I need to get into is, and I'm going to call out some mainstream media and other things like that, but guys like Stephen A. Smith and other creators and other media personalities and stuff, will y'all stop with this collusion nonsense? Will y'all stop with the racism nonsense? Shador Sanders not being drafted in the first round had nothing to do with the fact that he was black. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was cocky or arrogant. Okay, it had nothing to do with that. 53% of the people that play in the National Football League are African American. Okay, I think it was, I didn't look exactly at it, but I think it was 27 or 28 of the players drafted in the first round of this past weekend's draft were African American. Okay, there was no collusion. There was no agreement amongst the NFL teams that they weren't going to draft Shador Sanders. There was a report that came out of New York from the head coach that Shador was unprepared, uninterested, unprofessional. That is why he fell, because teams are not going to put a high draft pick on a player that doesn't seem like he wants to be there. They said he was entitled. Okay, yes, he won at Jackson State. It's Jackson State. Now, I get it. They still got to go out and ball. They still got to do it. But stop making it seem like he won national championships. He didn't. He didn't even win a bowl game. Yes, he had a high completion percentage. Yes, he ranked, so I do believe he should have gone earlier than he went. But at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders fell because he was unprofessional, unprepared, uninterested. He botched the offense set-in with the Giants. And there were multiple reports from multiple different people that were interviewed independently that said he didn't interview well. That's why he fell. It had nothing to do with his color. It had nothing to do with being cocky or arrogant. It didn't have anything to do with that. Can we stop the nonsense? I'm so over it, man. And y'all push this narrative that doesn't do anything but further divide people. Keep it about sports because that's what it's about. He didn't get drafted early because of the ball. That's why. Like, stop with it. Y'all are killing me. Something that was sent to me from my researcher sent me this, and I really like it when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. It's the last thing I'm going to talk about this before we get into the rest of the draft. But the great Walter Payton once said, when you're good at something, you will tell everyone. When you're great at something, they will tell you. Time will tell with Sanders, okay? But stop the nonsense. Moving forward, all right? I've said this, and I say it 100 times. I think Shedeur Sanders was much better than a 5th-round pick, okay? But we're going to get into that. Let's get into the rest of the draft. Hated that Jacksonville traded up and got the 2nd overall pick, traded with Cleveland, because it took the shine from the Titans. We talked about it a little earlier on the show with our guy Jonathan. So I hated that. And I really feel like ESPN did them dirty. They didn't show the onstage interview. They didn't show a lot of the other stuff for the number 1 overall pick. That's just crazy. Like, what are we doing? All right. The Giants trade back into the 1st round at pick 25 to pick Jackson Dart after taking Abdul Carter 3rd overall. I love the Abdul Carter pick at 3. I do not understand trading back into the 1st round to pick Jackson Dart, especially because you had already passed pick 21, where the Steelers, who supposedly had a 1st-round draft pick on Jackson Dart, had already picked. So what was the point? I'm not saying that somebody wasn't going to take him early in the 1st round, especially with Cleveland having 2 picks. But I mean, it didn't make much sense. It was a weird pick for me. And it kind of hurt the Giants in their draft grade for me. We're going to stick with the quarterbacks because after Ward and Dart, it really got kind of weird. The Saints went ahead and picked Tyler Stroud. If he can stay healthy, I do like the pick for the Saints. Okay, he's a big, strong quarterback. He's got some tape that's really kind of weird. He's got a couple of interceptions that didn't make a whole lot of sense. All right, but I think that as long as he can stay away from the injury bug, I think New Orleans is going to be a good place for him. He plays in a dome. He's got a good arm. He's played a ton of football. So I think that this is, going to be good for them. But we'll see how it pans out. The one for the quarterback that I did not think should have came out was Jalen Milroe. I thought Jalen Milroe should have went back to Alabama. But with that being said, I will say he went to the best situation for him, getting drafted by the Seahawks. This could be the Seahawks quarterback of the future. He can sit behind Sam Darnold, right? He can kind of learn how to be consistent. He's, probably one of the biggest athletes in this year's draft. So when he's running, he's great. And when he's being consistent and when he's on, the dude is lights out. In the first 4 games of the Alabama season, he was lights out. And if he had played the entire season that way, he probably would have been a 1st-round pick. Okay. But I do like Jalen Milroe going to Seattle, being able to sit behind Darnold. I think that this is going to be a good situation for him. Situation that I don't think is any good. The Browns. Like, I don't understand what the Browns are doing. Why would you spend a 3rd-round pick on Dylan Gabriel, quarterback out of Oregon, and then turn around and take Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round? Did you just take him because at your pick in the 5th round he was there? So you just went best available player? But what are we doing? Look at their draft, their quarterback room. You got Father Time himself, Joe Flacco. And then after that, you have Kenny Pickett, who really isn't any good. And then you have two infants, and I call them infants because they're rookies, in Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Now, I will say that with picking Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, you have a fantastic opportunity to have your starting quarterback and your future quarterback be picked in the 5th round. I do think Shedeur is much better than a 5th round pick. I can see why the interviews and everything would have dropped him out of the 1st, potentially the 2nd. I don't think Shedeur should have fallen out of the 3rd round, but it is what it is, and it happened. But Cleveland's quarterback room is a mess right now. Philly takes their backup quarterback and Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. Okay. This one to me is really where I'm starting to try to figure out what's going on, right? How does Kyle McCord go before Will Howard and Quinn Ewers? And we're going to get into Quinn Ewers here in a second. But whatever, Philly wants their backup quarterback. They have a good quarterback, strong arm. I like them. The Steelers finally take their quarterback. I have a cousin of mine, T, I love you, big dog. He was pulling his hair out the entire time with the draft because of the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. But they get their quarterback in the 6th round with Will Howard. And honestly, this makes it seem like that front office and Mike Tomlin knew what they were doing. I like the Will Howard pick for Pittsburgh. He gets to come in and potentially sit behind Aaron Rodgers. Rooney of the Steelers have said that the deal is potentially close to being done. So if you can get Will Howard to sit behind Aaron Rodgers, mature, learn how to play the game in the NFL, I think this could be great for them. I think Will Howard could be ready when his number is called to take the reins and be the starting quarterback for years to come for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At the end of the day, this is a national championship winning quarterback. And not just like a great defense national championship winning, be it Ohio State had a great defense. Will Howard made phenomenal throws. He can make the throws. He had a bad combine, and this goes back to what I said a little bit ago. Stop measuring everything on the combine, okay? Put the tapes on, watch that. But excited to see what Will Howard does in Pittsburgh. The Colts, they draft Riley Leonard, just continuing to show that they're not sure what's going on with their quarterback. And they don't know where they want to go. They drafted Anthony Richardson. He's struggled. Then they bring in Danny Dimes or Daniel Jones for those that need his name. And then you go out and draft Riley Leonard, who had a good career at Notre Dame. I think he was a productive quarterback. I think he's still rough around the edges. He's got a lot to learn. He's got to learn how to read defenses better. He's really bad under pressure, and he's not the most athletic quarterback. But I believe they got him in the 6th round. So, hey, that's not terrible. But for me, what really kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense to me was there was 3 other quarterbacks that went before Quinn Ewers. And even for me, somebody that watches football, I don't understand why. And I don't even get who some of these cats are. But I mean, okay. Quinn Ewers finally does wind up getting picked in the 7th round by Miami. I think that's a great pick. I think that is a fantastic value. I think Quinn Ewers is wildly underrated. I do think he can be a good quarterback. He will probably be the 2nd or 3rd string. He's obviously not going to start with Tua Tagovailoa there. But, hey, I mean, what are you going to do? Quinn Ewers, now you got to go out and show it. 3 teams that I think had a fantastic draft. 1, the Titans, of course, we got an A. I think that was a very good draft for us. I think a draft that is going under the radar is the Bears. Okay, I think Chicago got more weapons for Caleb Williams. They got more protection for him in the early rounds. I think they had a great draft. And then Las Vegas. Las Vegas had a phenomenal draft. I mean, just getting Ashton Gentry alone to go with Geno Smith, Brock Bowers, I mean, I think they're going to be great. Teams that I don't think had a good draft was Cincinnati, San Francisco, and the Giants. Cincinnati, I felt like reached on a lot of their draft picks. The same thing with San Francisco. The Giants, strictly because of the trade back into the 1st round for Jackson Dart. I didn't understand it, but hey, there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to have to see what it is. Congratulations to all the players that were drafted and all of the players that are going to be signed as undrafted free agents. Your dream is coming true, and I'm super happy that the Titans got a bunch of guys. Coming up out of the break, we are going to go into the fan favorite, my favorite, and everybody else's favorite, the Ain't No Way segment. What's good? Where are all my Birmingham people at? If you're looking for a ride, it don't matter if it's from the store, a doctor's appointment, or you had too much to drink and you need a designated driver. Hit up my guy Trey with Z-Trip at 205-369-3334. He'll get you wherever you need to go quickly and safely. That was 205-369-3334. And ask for Trey. Let him know that the guys at the Full Blitz podcast sent you. All right, y'all know what it is. My favorite segment. It is time for that Ain't No Way.
What you got,
all right,
man?
So what I have for you today is something I'm not even sure I understand. But as always, I'm going to give you the headline. And this is odd news. All right. This was reported April 17th of 2025. World's first sperm race to be held in Los Angeles.
Oh, I saw a
Have you
clip
seen
of this? And I didn't know if it was real, bro. I thought it was like an AI video, dog.
It is.
So
it is apparently real.
It's real.
So an unusual startup announced the world's first sperm race. A race involving actual sperm will be held April 20. Oh, so it happened 2 days ago. Will be held at the Hollywood.
I saw a video of it. No, I'm saying I saw a video.
So you actually saw,
bro.
So you saw the race.
There was like a microscope. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm yelling. Yes, I saw the actual race. There was like a microscopic racetrack.
So before we look at that, sperm racing, a startup founded by a team of young millionaires. This is why young people should not have money. Announced representatives from two competing schools, the University of Southern Cal, so USC and the University of Cal, will provide microscopic swimmers for the inaugural sperm race. The race will take place under microscopic cameras that will track the progress of the sperm as they attempt to cross the finish line. This is the most asinine thing ever.
Yo, but you haven't seen the video.
Bro, if you can find the video, put that thing up.
Bro,
the startup says there will be 3 races held to determine the overall winner, and play-by-play commentary will be provided during each heat. There will also be instant replays, leaderboards, and betting through approved partners. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Like, it was a legitimate, like, I'm trying to see if I can get it.
You millionaires, why don't you, I'll tell you what, why don't you email the show, right? And send us, like, you can Venmo. The show's got a Venmo. You can Venmo millions of dollars to us, and we'll put it to better use than you watching sperm race. That is just stupid.
Yeah, wait till you see this, brother.
All right, here we go.
Can you hear it? Because I can't.
I can hear it.
That's the track. And then when they get out of the circle, boom, it goes. And they literally on a microscopic track, bro.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever
seen. Somebody won a lot of money, though. I guarantee you that. Tristan.
How do you they all look alike? How do you know which one's which?
It's one on the top and one on the bottom.
No, but what I'm saying is all the sperm look alike.
It's about whose makes it first, not the individual sperm, but whose sperm makes it to the finish line first.
Like, don't you have to bet on who you think is gonna?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's Tristan. I think he won.
So I've been saying on the LeBron.
That is the most ridiculous thing in the world.
That's all I can say.
Listen, man.
You know what's funny is all of those young millionaires look like complete assholes.
This is what all those kids are doing with their crypto money. All the kids
this is what they're doing.
Rich, they got rich off of crypto and NFTs. This is what they're doing now.
This is ridiculous.
This is what they're doing. They're doing sperm racing.
This is ridiculous. But guys, there it is. You heard me read some of it. We gave you some of the video. Look, ain't no way.
A little delayed there. Sperm racing.
Neither do I. Well, guys, listen. We had a great show this week. Appreciate y'all tuning in. If y'all haven't already, make sure you go over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button. Go to TikTok, Instagram, follow us. Make sure you're checking us out on Facebook. All right. Hey, and again, if you got an Ain't No Way story, email the show, fullbliss@gmail.com. It's right here. Email the show with your story. And if we put it on the show, you'll get one of them custom hoodies or t-shirts. But hey, guys, until next week, peace and love.
Peace. Holla, holla. Holla, 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 holla. You know, they got air guitar sports too, right?
Yeah, I've seen that. That shit's actually pretty entertaining.
Oh, you like that and not the sperm racing?
That's so stupid.